power to our village.
For non-criminal things.
For health and safety violations that are within the jurisdiction of the city.
And
the
aesthetics
city.
Violations.
Pardon me.
And aesthetics
No,
violations.
you're never going to get one for that kind of thing.
Well, then,
I mean, you can apply for one,
No.
but you're never going to get one.
No, if you want to go to the judge and say, Judge, I want a warrant to go on the property over here because I don't like the yard ornament because I find it aesthetically displeasing. First of all, he's going to scream at you really loud.
then why is there
And
an
he's going to
ordinance
say
about
no.
it?
There's nothing in there about a yard
Eyesores?
ornament.
Well, eyesores.
Well, they just took it out.
They haven't taken.
You know, I have
Well-
to say here, the examples that you're putting out, you're doing what I call what ifs. We gotta write an ordinance for all the what ifs. And I'm saying, I don't think we need that. We're a town
These
of
aren't
130 people. Come on, give us a break. If we were 5,000 people, I can understand this. But 130 people, we gotta nail this down? I don't get it.
In the case law cited in the ordinance book that I read it, I can't remember the name of the case, but when you read that case, it's actually talking about an urban environments. And I don't consider Jameson to be the least bit urban. So why are we being held to this case law, or why is this case law being used to rationalize these warrants to be issued against the people of Jameson? From my perspective, you know, people are upset about 8 inches versus 10 inches of grass. The idea, just the very idea that village officers could enter your home is very troubling to people. You know, and I think it would allay a lot of concerns if we just specified in the administrative warrant section that village officers are not allowed to enter into the premises of a property with or without a warrant within the residential structure.
Even if invited, I can't go into Natalie's house.
No.
Well, that's a voluntary association.
That's silly.
That's not what he was meaning, they're invited, because
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's for
Because you just don't have any ordinance that would take you inside a house.
right. And
So
so
there's-
we're not going to get a
only
warrant for
Okay,
it.
okay, but there is an ordinance that
Yeah.
talks about your plumbing fixtures being
Yeah.
hooked up to city water.
Yeah.
That's outside.
No,
No,
inside.
inside. Plumbing would be inside. And that's not to say what other
Well, I know
ordinances
that's-
might be passed that would then come under that. It's just what makes me wonder why such vicious teeth need to be applied to the people here. Because it's a strong measure and it's usually used for criminal things. But now we're talking about, you know, a little village
Well,
of people that aren't committing crimes.
the health and safety violations that you speak of and you say are what ifs are not what ifs, they're actuals. And they've happened in
But not for
towns.
here.
They've happened in towns just as small. And nobody thought they'd happen until after they did. But
Will we cross that bridge when we come to it?
we're not here to
Why do we have to
law,
play the
but-
what if? If this is gonna happen, we gotta have something that's talks about. We have
Well, if
talked
you don't
in
have-
the past,
I'm sorry to interrupt
we
you.
have talked in the past of when the complaint comes forward, then examining the ordinance, you know? And then everybody said, well, that would be appropriate. But I don't see that it's appropriate to have it in advance when it's not needed. That's my own personal opinion.
But it's my understanding that you can't, wait until something happens and then
Pass a
make a
law.
law
Yeah.
about it.
No.
The government,
And
because
that was
I
a legitimate
I mean,
question. I agree.
I'm
you
just curious,
can't
why
wait
not?
until someone moves into town and leaves dead animals all over their yard or whatever. Whatever.
And if there's no ordinance,
If
then
there's no
they
ordinance,
can do it.
Well,
then
couldn't we pass an
there's
ordinance
nothing
then?
wrong with it.
Then no.
Nobody's
So,
gonna do anything about
So
it.
at that point, the board
No, I'm
can come
curious, why
together
can't you-
and say, we want to draft an ordinance dealing with dead animals being on the premises as a health safety hazard. You could still address it at that point.
But you could enforce it on that instance.
Yeah, because it's after the
Okay,
fact.
but it might be a live and learn, I agree.
Could I address that just briefly? I won't be lengthy. That exact example, Jim Gray used to shoot every stray dog that came in town, lived in the trailer down there, and he chucked it on the property that I owned directly behind him. He didn't put it behind his house. I approached him one time, and because he had actually shot my dog at one time, and asked him, told him not to throw the dogs on my property anymore, and that would have been, a violation of something. But the point I'm wanting to make, I can see the looks. It's like the point I'm wanting to make is I've only lived here 20 years, but in the last 20 years, we haven't had. And that would probably been one of the most egregious violations of dead animals that I can think of, other than the guy up here next to my property uptown by Kennison, who had a deer there between my trees, so I couldn't mow there. But there again, I said to him, "Could you mind moving your dead deer carcass there?" So I think in what they've just said is like, this isn't like this is Dallas or Kansas City or something like that. This is Jameson. If you don't dare speak to your neighbor, but in 20 years, maybe things are going to really digress from here on out. But it looks like a lot of the problems in the town aren't happening here anymore. Those people have left, and the people that come in seem to be conscientious. And I guess I'm just saying, like they've said before, this is Jameson. Seriously, do we need administrative warrants?
We probably need to move on. I mean, it's been a good discussion.
I just wanted to finish down at the bottom. The villagers want you to protect our personal property rights, not usurp them. No matter how many other cities or states are usurping that power. The struggle between rights, our personal property rights, our constitutional rights, and power to govern that is not new. Plato said, clear back in 400 years before Christ, good people do not need laws to tell them how to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around laws. So this is not a new thing, and we can make laws for whatever, but if we've got good people in our town, we don't need a bazillion. We're not saying we don't need any ordinances. There should be ordinances governing the things that the village should be taking care of, but they're not responsible for all of our personal properties and what we do and how we breathe, and it feels intrusive and oppressive.
Scary.
So, and the fact that there were 40% of the registered voters, that's just registered voters. We didn't poll anybody else. There were 40% of the registered voters here in Jameson that have a concern about these kinds of things that we're opening up. As the more ordinances we put in place, the more we lose our liberties, going back to what I suggested in the beginning. So I would really ask the board to take a closer look at that and not just think, oh, well, this case might happen. Think about our liberties, and do we need it? We are taking care of things here. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So, do we want to anybody want to make a motion to make any changes to that ordinance, or?
If I make a motion that it be written, is that a motion?
Be written,
Erased?
written or rewritten? Written.
Any suggestions?
Not off the top of my head.
So,
What is your motion for?
it needs to be
Right,
rewritten.
just have a sheriff.
Just eliminate
Is
it.
that a motion or a suggestion? Yes.
I don't know. I wish I knew
Well,
that.
one of the things that I've heard discussed quite a bit here, if I understood it correctly, is that there's an interest in feeling more comfortable if the sheriff's department would handle warrants and the enforcement of the warrants. Did I get that right?
No.
More comfortable with
We're
that?
just saying that's their job. We don't need
No,
this.
we'd be comfortable with that one.
I mean, you prefer that they did it rather than having the complaint committee who gets a complaint going and trying to speak with those folks or find out what there really is a violation. But then when the sheriff gets involved, it's gonna be enforced, where if you get the complaint committee, whatever, complaint panel, then there would be, it seems to me, chance for resolution collegially with, neighbors and friends, instead of saying, yeah, there are dead dogs there. I went and looked at them, said the sheriff, and they were there. And if the panel goes and looks at them and says, do you need some help with that? Do you need a bigger track?
So
Do you need
we're
a tractor? So
thinking that we're saying that the panel can't go and talk to people? We're just saying the panel shouldn't have
No, she's agreeing
warrant
with
powers.
that.
Panel's not gonna go talk to anybody
But that
unless somebody complains.
She is
Yeah.
agreeing with
But
what
people
The
do complain.
panel precedes the warrants.
I'm sorry.
Yes, the panel
Yes,
precedes
yes.
the warrants.
it doesn't exclusively in the way it's written now. It says that contents of warrant and who can execute the warrant. Sorry, I found it a while ago. I think I found it.
Section 4 is the application for the warrant.
No, it's more than.
Is there a-
So my whole point of all that is that I would like to, page 6,
On 63.
okay, I'm on 63, section 6. Yeah, be directed to a designated officer for ordinance enforcement of the village, or to the sheriff of Davies County. That's the contents of the warrant. The warrant shall be in writing in the name of the village, be directed to, and is directed to mean give it to them to go act on the warrant, and set the time and the date it was issued, and identify the property and places, and command that it be entered, and all that stuff. So it seems to me that as long as, I'm interested in keeping the panels in place, because I like things to be settled non-judiciously. Judiciously, but not just judicially, sorry, judicially. So, as far as I'm concerned, if we change that the warrants can only be acted upon by the Davies County Sheriff's Office, at this point, I think I could live with that, but I don't know what the other side of those arguments are.
Why not take the warrants out? Why do
I'm gonna talk to my board members here, okay, with that.
How
Is
can we
that-
tell when you're talking to us?
Well, I thought our chair asked if any of the board members had suggestions to the document, and I, as the board member, was trying to respond to the board chair's request. So that's why I was talking with him, so we're good.
So,
And, I mean, I'm just saying that's a possible thing of addressing what I think is being said, but I don't know if that's what's being
I
said.
think it's
or
a
what's-
movement forward. I do.
But I don't know what other people, what does it think? I mean, there's one, right?
Lori, do you have a motion on the floor?
no.
Oh, sorry.
No, she was, we were just responding to.
Okay. So, do we want to ask Lucille to strike? I mean,
Well, I'd
why
like
do we
to
want
hear-
to move forward? I mean,
Well, two of us said we're kind of interested in this.
Or is there
but
any
not
other,
married to
you
it,
know?
so what does the rest? We're only two. We don't have 3 votes.
You want Lucille to just strike this whole thing?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Yes.
Sheriff.
Where it says
Well, to eliminate.
I vote for
Page
Aletha.
63.
63.
Yes.
over
B.
here.
1B.
Come on, Aletha, get rid of it.
Contents, the warrant shall number letter B.
I think that's a great idea, Aletha.
You'd
be the hero. We'd love you.
In other words,
And I'm suggesting just making it be directed to
I'd give you
the
a
sheriff,
free.
I would say sheriff's office, the sheriff of Davies County, and not the ordinance, not any board member. Let them, if the judge says it's going to be a warrant, then make the warrant enforceable or
by the sheriff.
acted on by the sheriff.
Then we would have to approve that and that.
And at this point, the complaint panel has exhausted all of our opportunities.
It's not bringing
Because I
someone
want it to be nice and simple. Yeah, but if people won't talk to us, won't deal with us, then we'll cooperate, even have a conversation. Then that's
You're talking about section 6.
right.
Maybe direct it.
To
From
the
what I
sheriff of
understand,
Davies County.
that would be
Right, so I would delete all, I would say,
amenable to what I understand. the public.
A designated
Exactly.
officer for ordinance enforcement of the village.
Not completely, but
Move
Just
to-
directed
and-
to
Right,
the
exactly.
sheriff if they
I just don't want to do it.
We all agree not to have
So I just want to make it direct to the sheriff's office.
our own. Right.
Well, I think we can.
Then they've got to have this for everything else in this.
I don't know.
I think we can ask for the draft
Ask for
language.
the draft
If
language.
people think that's a good idea.
I mean, that sounds,
And then she'll also pick up where else it is in this portion of the ordinance. This is the one we're focused on. But that seems to me, the sheriff's office is gonna know more about legally
How to
and
do
doing this
it.
stuff,
Than
Big
I would
animals.
as a board
And
member.
I don't think, as board members wanna be in that position.
It will be very
The
unlikely that
town.
we'll ever get to the
I
sheriff's
know.
office if the complaint review panel.
We hope.
Right, if the complaint review, and they'll talk to the complaint review panel and accept help,
So is that,
So,
if somebody asks the plaintiff
right.
Section
So
six.
I just asked that Lucille redraft this ordinance to reflect that change. And then we'll bring it back to our next meeting, and then we'll do first reading, second reading, motion to, if we get it out the way it is or something. That's what I think.
I agree.
And we don't have to vote on that, but
Yeah.
unless somebody wildly objects. Okay,
Okay,
thank
all
you.
right.
okay.
All right.
Just give me.
Okay, small town.
Okay, this one is fairly short and simple.
Elaine's waiting, ask for just a minute to get her papers
Oh,
in
I'm
order.
sorry. I'm trying to
She's
get.
just gonna
That's
say
all right.
that.
That's all right. Okay.
Okay. Now she's good.
Give us a high song.
Goats, you're up.
Okay, this one's fairly simple. I would like to make a proposal that we get out of the small town association. Don't think we need it.
Sorry, we were
I
sharing.
think Jameson has the capability of taking care of ourselves. We have enough concerned citizens that. Mary, you know your seat.
No. I just hop around.
Can I get one away? How about you, Jake? You want me to read it? I think it needs to be read. To the Board of Trustees of the Village of Jameson, Daviess County, Missouri, the Small Town Corporation Cooperative Agreement, or the STCA. The Small Towns Cooperative Agreement adopted March 10, 2011 by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Jameson provides for the termination of our participation in the STCA by the village or the board giving 30-day notice, written notice by December 1st of the given year. Village of Jameson Ordinance, Section 2, Number 3. We, the members of the Village of Jameson, propose that our Board of Trustees give written notification of termination to the STCA and also terminate our membership on the Joint Cooperative Board. This termination would be effective December 31st, 2015. We have been given a copy of this petition in which 40% of the registered voters signed desiring termination of this membership in the STCA and bring our governing decisions back under the influence of the villagers who live in Jameson. The reason for this request is because it is felt, as you have been explained to, the STCA is the source for many of our conflicts in the village at this time between the citizens and the Board of Trustees. We value our unified togetherness, our neighborliness, our spirit of cooperation that has been created here in Jameson for many years. We have people willing to work together to clean up Jameson. Our Betterment Committee is doing a fantastic job, and we applaud them and all the citizens of Jameson who have volunteered time and talents to promote the beautification and the cleanup of Jameson. We can accomplish so much more as neighbors volunteering to help each other than through policing and enforcement encroachment upon our property owners and neighbors. By terminating our participation in the STCA, we will be free to amend our Jameson ordinances and enforce them as agreed upon by our own village elected officials, not as dictated to us by outside entity boards or advisors. Rather than spending money on courts, lawyers, etc., we keep our funds in the town to benefit us through our own betterment committee. Therefore, we support our elected board of trustees of the village of Jameson to terminate our participation and commitment to the small town cooperative agreement this year. Thank you for your attention and your action upon this crucial matter. Concerned citizens of Jameson. I would like to propose this. I will address it.
You move this be adopted. Yes, so
A motion that this be adopted by the board.
Do we have a motion on the floor? Any second?
Any discussion? Since there's no second.
Oh, I guess.
And I asked for discussion before I make the proposal or after?
well, you usually have a second before you discuss it, but that's why I'm discussing it.
we're not discussing it yet. It's my understanding if we do not belong to the STCA, BA, whatever it is, all this enforcement ordinance stuff is done.
No, it's on us to do it.
It's on us to do everything, to draft everything, to hire our own city prosecutor if things need to go to court, to make the, I don't know, we have to get a judge to agree to do this, and it's all upon us to do all of that. We won't have Lucille to help us with the legalities of the ordinances, or Jan to help us if we have problems with some citizen not following the ordinances. She's not going to be there to prosecute unless we have to hire her ourselves.
You're saying if we get out?
If we get out,
You're talking
yes.
about if we get out.
Yes. I mean,
And I would say the premise that we are not currently free to amend our ordinances and that we're being dictated to by an outside entity, I disagree with that premise, with both of those premises. I don't believe that's true. I believe we were elected to make decisions, and we're making decisions, and if we hire people who are willing to volunteer their time to make sure that what our ordinances are written properly and cite each place in our ordinances. I mean, that we have one part-time clerk, and I think that if we want to stay on the path that we're on as far as being more formal about what we do, that it would be wrong to adopt the membership. That's my point.
any other discussion?
I don't think we could afford to have the services that we do without being a member of the cooperative. And that's why we have the cooperative, so that it's not a huge burden on any of the small entities.
Jan said she only prosecuted 2 or maybe 3 cases in all the small towns, so we might not be missing on something that we need.
Unless there's plans to prosecute people.
I mean, I have absolutely no idea how to write ordinances to make them legitimate, and I don't believe any, maybe we could learn,
But I
but
think-
we have people who, that's what the Small Towns Cooperative is helping us with.
But I do think there are folks who think we don't need any ordinances, so this is a way to get rid of that, because we don't know how to do it. And so this is it could be an approach for that.
I've never
An
heard
approach
anybody
for
say
what?
they didn't
Say
want
that again.
ordinances.
Well, it could be, by getting out of the board, it seems to me that we would, as Natalie just said, we would not be able to legally and all that protect our citizens from us doing stupid things unintentionally. And so if someone doesn't want there to be any ordinances, this would be a way of getting the board in trouble. So,
It's a way of protecting ourselves against ourselves.
yeah. Thank you. Much better said.
So it does.
I haven't heard anybody say
So-
that they don't want any ordinances either.
Never.
She's just saying that if that was somebody's thing, that this would be a way to do that. Is to get out of the STCB, whatever it's called.
STCA.
And then, yeah, and then,
But that doesn't negate the ordinances that we have. If we were to
we
take,
wouldn't have a way
To enforce.
to enforce them. If we were to get out of the STCB, we would not have a prosecutor to, if it comes to that, to do that. We would not have the services that Lucille has provided by drafting all of these for us, because she does have knowledge on wording and all that kind of stuff. I mean, she brings everything to us, and, I mean, you've
So
seen,
we asked her to.
you know, that we ask her to, and we go through everything. I mean, so I mean, she's just the one doing the dirty work, I guess you could say. I mean, for lack of a better term. And we wouldn't have that if we weren't in the STCB.
And can I suggest too that the STCB does not draft anything that isn't requested.
Yes.
We don't dictate anything. We say, here it is, what do you want? Whatever you want as a board, and that goes in every municipality, that is what is drafted. We don't dictate anything. It is totally up to the towns to decide what they want. If they want it, it gets drafted. If they don't want it, it doesn't get drafted. It is, if they want it, then Lucille will write it.
Yeah.
And she and I discuss the legalities of various things.
Does Lucille write it, or does she get the ordinances from another organization?
You'll have to ask Lucille that.
It depends on what is wanted. If there's something that someone requests that can be obtained, you know, I don't reinvent the wheel. If it's something that we're trying to figure out language for, then we work it out. And sometimes we, as you're trying to figure out a way to word the item dealing with the weeds, brush, and grass, you know. Those kinds of things need to be kicked around by everybody with an interest, and eventually maybe can be improved. But most of the philosophy of preparing these ordinances has been to bring them down to the level that works for small towns. And very little of that is actually available anywhere. So they have, you know, we've got them.
Because a lot of the small
Create them for
towns
small
have
towns.
a lot of the same issues.
A lot of the small
when-
towns have a lot of the same issues, and none of the small towns want to be equivalent to Kansas City or, you know. So the entire philosophy has been to make them something that works for small towns. And I think even hearing the critics here, that you find that there's only a very few that are even in dispute. Unfortunately, some of those things have been misunderstood and perhaps misrepresented as a result of misunderstanding. And that has generated more controversy than has been necessary. But some improvements have been made with the input of citizens everywhere. And those are the kinds of things we do.
I will note too that Lucille tracks the statutes that apply to the small municipalities, the villages and the fourth-class cities and the small. She tracks those, just like what you changed today, where the law was this, and then they undid this. And so in order to